We were reporting a little bit earlier, Keir Starmer had to evacuate by helicopter a visit to a housing development. Of course, today is all about housing for the government. It's all about these new towns that they're going to be building up and down the country, apparently, although we don't yet know exactly where. I don't believe these new towns are going to appear or how much they're going to cost. But anyway, the farmers turned up at what should have been a meet and greet and a nice announcement at a housing development, and they honked their horns and he had to scarper.
So we can see on our screen some of these tractors that popped up just outside Milton Keynes, perhaps the most famous new town, or I suppose we should say new city now. But shall we get reaction now from the Labour Member of Parliament for Bracknell, Peter Swallow. Peter, thanks for being with us this afternoon. It seems that the Prime Minister's announcement has gone a bit off kilter.
Well, firstly, let me just say that obviously Bracknell is the most famous new town. We're really proud to be a new town. We've just celebrated our 75th anniversary.
Congratulations, very new.
Well, yes, we're an old new town, and we're really proud of that. And you know, the fantastic opportunities that being a new town has delivered for people in Bracknell, access to green spaces, integrated transport. We have our issues, as all new towns do, but we really are a success story, and we prove why we need more new towns, and that's why I'm so delighted that the government's cracking on with its plans, and why it's so great that we've had over 100 applications for new towns come in.
We will talk more about the new towns, of course we will, because the new towns is the story of the day from the government. But just on Keir Starmer having to essentially evacuate a housing development visit because farmers turned up with their protest and their tractors, I mean, can Keir Starmer continue to ignore this issue?
I don't think he's ignoring it at all. Look, it's a fantastic...
Well, he didn't speak to them, did he?
It's a fantastic... reality of our democracy that we have protesters making their case in this exciting and eye-catching way. I think it's really good that we've got we are a country that allows for peaceful protests to go on really important issues. Obviously, I'm excited to talk about new towns. But it's right that we've got the people feel that they're able to demonstrate and express their opinions on important
Peter,
issues.
It's just a bit of a shame, because I mean I'm very interested in the government's policy on new towns. I know that, as you say, more than 100 areas have applied to become new towns. We don't quite know where they will be yet. We've got some hints from the government, but Keir Starmer was meant to talk to journalists here, and unfortunately he's not had that interview on the site because he had to leave because of the protests, and so perhaps we're not getting some of the answers that we might have done had Keir Starmer been able to speak to journalists at this event. Do you think he should have spoken to the farmers and then perhaps he would have been able to continue looking around this housing development and we could have got some answers? But because he ran away, we didn't get those answers.
Well, I know the government has been speaking to farmers for months over their concerns. Today was about and is about our plan for new towns, and it's really important that the government has been able to put forward some new details today. There's much more to come, though, and you'll know that this is something that's going to be looked at as part of the spending review in terms of the funding commitments. I know that was something that you mentioned in your intro. So, look, there'll be plenty of opportunities to question the government, I'm sure.
I must say, Peter, I was at I was reporting from the Whitehall protest where the hundreds of tractors appeared on Monday, and there were a lot of Conservatives, a lot of Reform. I didn't see one Labour MP, I don't think. Not really talking to the protesters.
I know that my colleagues, particularly those in rural communities, have been meeting with farmers in their constituency, have been engaging really closely with them. I have to say, as a new town, Bracknell doesn't have any farms in my neck of the woods, but I know it's something that we have been working on. We've been highlighting, for example, mental health in farmers just this week in Parliament, and it's really important that we do that. Look, with our policy on land use framework and our commitments to making sure that we support food security in the UK, there are lots of issues that we need to be working with farmers on. And I know that the government is keen to listen and engage, including on areas where there is perhaps less agreement, because that's what a responsible government does.
OK, when it comes to these new towns, we're learning that they'll start to be built by the end of this Parliament. That's 4 years away. I mean, the rhetoric in the general election is that there's a housing crisis now. There's an emergency, really, in this country. People we've got record homelessness, for one. We've got people giving out more than half of their salaries in rent to be able to, frankly, have a roof over their heads. This is a national emergency, and yet we're waiting for spending reviews. We're not going to learn where these new towns are. I mean, it's going to be more than a year on from the general election until we learn where these towns are, let alone the plans being submitted. There won't be spades in the ground until the end of this Parliament. Is the government acting with the urgency that they suggested was necessary on this issue?
Look, everyone will always want to go further and faster, but what I will say is, when you're building a new town, you're not just popping some extra houses in place, you're building whole communities. And it is important that we take the time to get that right, to make sure that we learn from success stories like Bracknell. We also learn where perhaps we could improve on the next generation of new towns. And alongside that, the government has immediately got rolled up its sleeves and got stuck in with unlocking some of the housing that is already in the planning system, but that's become stuck. They've already unblocked 20,000 stuck homes, with the potential to unlock up to 700,000 more homes stuck in the system that under the previous government were just languishing, not being built, spades not in the ground. And that is part of our plan to build 1.5 million.
Peter, how much is it
homes.
going to all cost us, though, all these new towns? Is it the taxpayer that's going to have to pay for all these towns? Because, I mean, the population increase is probably one of the reasons why we need all these new towns, because immigration's been so high. So how much is it going to cost us? Well,
building new towns is a sure way to get growth. It's about working with the private sector, bringing in private sector investment, and it's a sure way to make sure that we've got the money in our economy that we need to support.
So we don't know how much it's going to
cost.
We don't know how much yet.
Well, look, that will come at the spending review. The government's made that clear. What I will say, though, is the languishing house building that we saw under the previous government was a large part of the reason why we didn't have the growth we needed to support our public services.
Is there a political difficulty here in that building these new towns isn't just about how many towns there are, it's about where they are? And these can generate a lot of money for the taxpayer if they're built, frankly, in the southeast of England. If they're built in the north of England, they might actually cost more to build than they can sell for. So is there a risk here that politically the Chancellor might want to throw one or two new towns in an area where they're actually not going to generate any money because there isn't the same sort of housing crisis that we see in the south of England? Is there a risk that we're going to get some sort of political designations that aren't chosen for economic reasons? Or is this going to be a hard-headed economic calculation? Can you make a commitment that every new town built will actually raise money rather than costing money?
The government's been clear that it sees its New Towns programme as a vehicle for economic growth. And look, I have to say I don't have quite as pessimistic a view as you do about the north of England. I think that there are areas in the north of England which are absolutely driving that growth. But as a Southeast MP from a new town, I recognise that new towns have been a part of the success story of my region, and long may that continue.
OK, Peter Swallow, thank you very much indeed for your time. Labour MP for Bracknell, an old new town. An old new town.
like
Milton Keynes, I guess that's an old new town as well.
Yeah, although I hope we build them a bit.
I just worry, I mean, these type of projects, they're always so expensive for everyone, aren't they?